We are at the American Heritage Museum just outside of Boston, and we're continuing our tour of various vehicles. They've got a fair few vehicles here, in fairness. So at the beginning, it's like, oh, we want to only film a few vehicles. Pick whichever vehicles are there, and you're going, all of them?
Yeah.
But I wanted to come to the Stungeschutz for a couple of reasons. Firstly, this is, again, one of the vehicles in the collection that is one of the pride and joy vehicles, because it is very rare that you find an actual Stungeschutz in the US. Usually they're converted FE432s or whatever. This is a real thing, and it is beautiful inside. The restoration was like over $1 million.
Whoa.
Absolutely beautiful. But let's see if you were paying attention to one of my recent videos. If you were looking at a Stungeschutz from the side, and you have this skirting in the way, how can you tell if it's a Panzer III based Stug or a Panzer IV based Stug?
I don't know. Because if you can't see, because how I would tell the difference between a Panzer III and a Panzer IV is the wheels on the top. And if the skirts are blocking it, then that's sort of my main when I would go to look.
What's wrong with the wheels on the bottom?
Well, I don't take a look at those usually.
Why not?
Because I
do
don't
you not like lower wheel? You're a top half sort of person?
Hey, no judgment here. No judgment here. There's a Panzer IV has is
Were
an 8.
you telling me not to judge people over the
Listen,
IS-2?
I said no judgment. I said no judgment.
Vehicles, sorry. Count the wheels on the side, divide by 2.
Right. So this one has 6 and the 4 would have 8.
Correct.
That was the other rule, right?
Yeah. So I mentioned that in the Panzer III video I put
Okay.
out. They said, no, you just can't do return rotors. It's a Schützen.
Right.
What was this developed for? Let's test your knowledge a bit further.
Well, I don't know.
What do you think it would do?
Well, it provides some sort of protection for something, as well as it also hides the shape of this vehicle from the side, with regard to the structure.
Well, you can make an argument or two here.
It would definitely provide protection against certain kinds of rounds, but not.
All right, so you got a couple of issues. So for the concealment, what we have here is a huge angular shape, right? What is the one thing that you don't see in nature?
Angular shapes that are huge.
Yes. So that's why if you look at the current Israeli helmets, for example, they come with this floppy thing that looks completely unmilitary.
Right.
And I know that the US Army would never ever dream of adopting it because it looks sloppy. But it works because it deforms it, and that's why you shove branches and trees and all that until we were told we're not allowed to cut down the trees anymore, probably for environmental reasons.
We don't really want to make it like invisible. We just want people not to know where exact edges are, so they can't find the target as easily, see how far away it is as easily, and things like that.
So that's going on from that. If you were colorblind, you are actually more likely to see camouflage vehicles. Why do you think that is?
Because you don't see colors the same way as.
Right. So this is painted for desert markings, let's say.
Right.
And if you're in the desert and you're looking for yellow vehicles on a yellow background, you're not going to see it. What are you looking for? You're looking for angles. You're looking for shapes.
Right.
And if you're colorblind, that is what you have been looking for your whole life.
Right.
So colorblind personnel back then would be specifically sought to go into reconnaissance units.
Wow.
They don't do it anymore. I tried making that argument because they said I was too colorblind to be a Cav Scout. And the arguing history with the recruiter doesn't work. But no matter. Okay, so we have concluded that this is not for concealment of the silhouette. You did say for protecting against things.
Right.
What things?
I would imagine like an RPG type thing.
It does have that effect, but that's not why it was developed.
Okay.
Okay, so these things showed up during the invasion of the Soviet Union. What did the Soviets have a metric ton of? Many metric tons.
People.
People armed with?
With rifles.
How big?
Your 7.62 by 54.
Bigger rifles, the PTRDs.
Okay.
14 point, it's an anti-tank rifle.
Okay.
And that was powerful enough to go through the side of a Stug. It was actually powerful enough, although, again, statistically it shouldn't, but it was powerful enough to go through the side of the Panther.
Okay.
And that's why they started developing the Panther II. You saw that when you went to Fort Benning.
Right.
Right, so I don't know if you took much of a good look at the Panther II, other than the suspension. The side plates of the Panther II are thicker than that of the Panther. And the reason for that was because of all these really annoying PTRDs. Then somebody realized, well, hang on, instead of designing an entirely new tank, if you just put this skirting on, the Schützen, it'll knock sufficient penetration off of the PTRD round that your tank will now be safe.
There we are.
And that was much cheaper, so that's why the Panther II got nixed. It wasn't worth it.
Yeah.
And so the same thing here. However, they did discover that it might actually have a positive effect against bazookas and RPGs and whatever else may be out there. I'm not quite sure when the RPG-2 entered service, but it may have done it. I would actually have to look it up. Yeah, I don't know everything. I like to pretend I do, but I don't. All right, so Sturmgeschütz, most successful vehicle probably the Germans came out with. And I love the Panzer III. I really, it has its flaws. I mean, look at the front of the vehicle. What do we have under here?
It looks like the transmission is actually going to be under here.
It is. It's going to be the transmission, the steering system, and so on. You have to replace the transmission.
Right.
How do you do it?
That would be a task. It would have to be, as I don't imagine there's anything from underneath, and you're not going to mess with that. So it would have to be through here or out through the.
Yeah, the transmission is going to fit through there.
Right. But a people isn't going to fit so well through there.
Right. So yeah, it's the same with the regular Panzer III as well. In order to change the transmission, you have to pull the turret off entirely and then shove things through. I'm not sure if we can actually remove the superstructure on this. I'd have to. Yes, you can. The superstructure seems to be bolted on to the side of this. So you pull off the superstructure, it looks like, and through it goes. I saw a Jagdpanther getting the transmission repaired, and you have to pull the gun off entirely, set it aside in the field, and then you use special tools to get the transmission up into the main body, into the casemate, and then out through, like with 2 millimeters of clearance on each side. It's like the Germans didn't think you had to repair these things. I mean, what do you drive on a daily basis?
I drive a Hyundai 2003
Right,
XG
so
350.
That probably doesn't break down a hell of a lot.
It actually doesn't. That thing's like a catfish. It's impossible to kill without first removing its will to live.
How would you do that to a Hyundai?
I haven't found it. It yet lives.
Okay, so you don't have to repair it all that much, and when you do repair it, it's
going to be something
easy.
minor. You know, something that you'd have. I got 160,000 miles on it, and it's just been like minor things. Timing belt here and there, like something small that that would wear. But the engine, the transmission, everything's running fine.
1940s technology, not quite as rugged as a Hyundai.
Right.
And so these things would break down, and you would think the designers would make it a little bit easier to repair things. So yeah, you can open these up, you can do a lot of the fine adjustment, but if you got to replace this transmission, you're hosed.
Yeah.
But going back to something we were talking about earlier, look at these weld lines.
It is a nice weld.
They are very nice.
This is
welds.
a nice weld.
And I would prefer this kind of weld on my vehicle over that we saw on the Soviet tank.
I understand that. I can understand.
And nice luxury of life fittings, like this embossed plating here, so you don't slip and fall.
Slip, don't lose your grip. You don't want to.
In the icy, frigid temperatures of the Soviet Union, or in this case, the icy, frigid temperatures, I guess, of the desert of North Africa, which could get cold. Of course, this is, as you correctly identified earlier, off camera, a late model vehicle with the cupola. So this was perhaps not actually ever found in the desert.
Very possible.
But we've decided to kind of place it in that sort of environment anyway, opposite the T-34.
Also not really found in the desert.
No. Here's the other thing. Of course, these things all left the factory yellow.
Right.
And dunkelgelb. And the idea was that when you got to the field, you applied the camouflage locally. Perhaps this simply represents one that they ran out of paint.
Sure, nobody has time for that.
Yeah, whatever. A lot of these ended up in Finnish service. So a lot of the surviving Sturmgeschütz were these late model vehicles, and they ended up Finnish. We have additional armor. Again, a great thing that the Panzers could do. They built the Panzers with expansion. That's
you could
part of the reason
up-armor those, up-gun them, all sorts of stuff you could do to kind of adjust to the needs of whatever they were needed in the field.
You did, and very few tanks were designed with that level of expansion in mind. So again, credit to the Germans. But this was, 10,000 of these things built?
Good number.
And low profile, cheap, easy to build, good gun. I actually got a pretty good win rate in this thing, I think, on World of Tanks as well.
They're pretty good camera rating, it works all right. But I mean, the lifespan of one of these things in the war was what, like 2 weeks?
Well, considering how many of them actually survived, it was longer than most.
Yeah.
But again, these things were generally originally crewed by artillerymen, not by tankers. Right. So this was an infantry support gun. Sturmgeschütz was literally an assault gun. And it's something that kind of went out of doctrine for a few years, but they brought it back in again. But as I said, so enough of the outside. We can all look up. We can all look at the history of the vehicle. You are going to love the inside of this thing.
I don't believe you. I've heard it's a little cramped.
You're going to love the quality of this restoration.
That I could accept.
Okay.
Yeah. All right, so we're inside the Stug 3G.
Beautiful restoration.
It is.
And even with the scissors scope in place, I was still able to get in and out. I mean, it slowed me down a little bit, but you went straight for the driver's hole. Mm-hmm. Was it comfortable?
Of course not.
Really?
No, it's got all this sort of this mechanism is here, and it's completely dark, and so naturally,
it's completely dark.
my shins found the back of the chair. You
Okay,
know,
all right.
my seeing eye shins found all of these things, and so some of the things that, like, you can see you can see part of the transmission there, and that's going to be like right above your feet, above the controls of the driver, and so you can see how small it is.
Right,
and
but it's above your feet. Your feet should be able to slip in underneath.
It is above the feet, yeah. But thinking with, if this vehicle is hit from the front, and you have this thing right behind you, there's possibly a dead dude behind you, you cannot get out through that hatch.
Nope.
You cannot. And so that would be why they equipped all the drivers of these tanks with a pistol.
Go to Fiddler's Green or whatever the German equivalent is. Right, because when I got into a Panzer III, I found the driver's seat actually be extremely comfortable.
There's back support.
There is
That's a
that.
comfortable
Yeah,
seat.
but I actually had room for my legs.
Yeah.
You know, I'm 6'5", and a lot of the tanks of early World War II I don't fit in.
Right.
This driver's position, no problem. I could stay in it for hours.
But like room-wise, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Leg room and width and height, and I know. The point about the lack of a hatch is significant.
Yeah.
But hey, you can't have everything you stand as in early World War II. Now, of course, now you're sitting right now in the gunner's seat. We've got the 75, and we have the sight.
Yeah.
Now, note what is different between this sight and the Panzer.
Right.
Where is your optic, the objective lens of it?
Out here?
It's up top.
Right.
Where is it on a regular German tank?
I've not seen that.
Okay, so German vehicles, generally speaking, the optic for the tank goes right through the mantlet and it comes out about the same level as the gun. And I often harp on about this being a disadvantage. And if you look at a modern tank, Leopards, Abrams, whatever, the sight is actually up top where this one is. Why would that be an advantage?
Well, if you've got, that's less weak spots through the front of the vehicle, less open things. If you've got an optic there, if you've got a place that you can see through.
True, but you can also assume that if something's hitting you in the front of the vehicle, it probably can punch through. So
Right.
what's the better reason? Okay, how is this vehicle ordinarily used?
You sit in a bush, sit on a ridge, sit back under cover.
Yeah, this is an ambush vehicle, right? So what you want to do is you want to be as hidden as you can.
Right.
Right now, if you are the gunner and you want to aim at something before the enemy sees you, you want to, it's like you just pop your nose or your eyes over the top of whatever the ridgeline is. With a vehicle like this, how much of the vehicle has to be exposed in order for you to see your target and figure out what you want to shoot at and how far away it is and how fast it's moving?
Less than a regular tank with a whole turret on it.
Correct. All you need to do is you just need to have the top of the roof visible,
Yeah.
and your periscopic lens can see the target and it can start your process for the ambush.
So you can move less of your structure in a visible manner.
Correct.
Right.
So then when it's time to engage, you say driver forward, or Fahrer Vorwärts, I guess, in German, and you scoot forward, and then you immediately service your target, because you're not wasting time going, okay, the commander told me that the Sherman was going to be here off the right-hand side. And it wasn't until the F Panther, which was never really built, the Schmaltern that's in Bovington, that you start seeing that the gunner's periscope is on the top of the turret. Now, there is one advantage to having the sight low, in that it's next to the gun. So you're driving forwards. How do you know if your gun is clear of the bush or the hill or whatever it is you're hiding behind?
Right. You'd have to have sight of it.
Or you would have to have the sight at the same height as the gun.
That way you know you're not
That way
stuck
you know.
behind a structure or something like this.
There are two other ways of figuring it out on this vehicle. What do you think they are? Well, one is you simply look through the breech.
Okay.
Obviously you can have the round loaded, but you can do
Right.
it. The other is the driver.
Okay.
So
He's
if the
right up
driver
there,
he's at about the same level as the gun. So if he can see sky instead of dirt, the gun can see sky instead of dirt. So that's how he knows, okay, I've gone far enough, I'll stop. And you have a minimal exposure. So this is another reason why it's not just low silhouette, this is another reason why this is such a lethal ambush weapon. And the Jägerpanzer as well. You will see on both the Jägerpanzer 38T and the Jägerpanzer 4, the sight is in the roof. Very, very underrated capability, in my humble opinion.
Yeah, it seems like a small difference. It seems like a very small variant in design feature from what was conventional, but it makes a really big difference for the guys in the field.
It does, and that small little difference could be the difference between living and dying,
Right.
which is not so small
Not at all.
to the guys inside.
Yeah.
But no, as I was saying, so I mean, this was restored, maybe about 20 years ago, so I guess it's getting a bit dusty. But considering the condition these things were in when they got here, I mean, the optics are absolutely clear. I mean, I'm not sure you can see through that. You
Clear
can see
vision,
reticle.
right on the side of the gun mantlet on that T-34. It's very clear.
Of course, this gun would punch through at that range.
Oh yeah. I mean, shit. Yeah, everything's clear. Everything's clean. Things look like they should be where they should be. And it's
Yeah, you got a nice backrest here, unlike that IS-2. This is a far more reasonable seat, I think.
yeah, back support for the gunner. You know, this is thoughtful. So, what would you rate the comfort level of this tank?
It's probably a 7, I'd say.
Okay.
Especially given the standards of the time, because again, this is again an issue. People forget about how good the Panzer III was,
Right.
and they say, "What was the best tank of the war?" And they'll immediately go for the late war tanks, the Panther, the IS-2, whatever. The Panzer III was designed well before World War II started, and it was sufficiently large to be a viable tank, 4 or 5 years after its production started, and I fit perfectly well in it. And people, you can't expect an early war tank to be comfortable. The Panzer III is a case in point. You can. It's a very comfortable vehicle. So by just simply default, this is one of the most comfortable of the early war period. Thus, rate an 8.
Fair enough.
I like how we're starting this comfort rating. I note also that you are not providing any opinions on your own on the comfort rating on a scale of 1 to 10.
Well, because you have the comfort rating.
What do you
You're
have?
always talking about the tank and its comfort.
So what's your rating? The thick rating?
Yeah, I like my armor just like I like my milkshakes. Thick.
I walked into that.
You did. Do you roll with the thick track wolf pack? I'll stop.
Please.
I'll never stop. I'm not sorry.
I think we'll go find another tank.
He's not down with the thickness. Which vehicle are we going to next?
I don't know. Matilda.
Okay.
Infantry tank Mark II.
Okay.
She likes Matildas.
I do. They have a character.